And we're back. Okay. I am not going to do this work on this guy too much longer. I don't think. Right now, my attitude is I'm going to work on it until I reach the limit of my meager ability, which I think I'm closing in on. I'm not a sculptor, but it's getting there. It's getting, I mean, it's certainly, definitely even more so than when we started today. Perfectly good enough for my purposes. Like this works. But now I just kind of want to, I'm sort of enjoying myself. I want to see if I can take it a little bit further. I know, though, I am closing in on, as I said, the limit of my ability. And I'm not going to try and, like, again, this doesn't have to be amazing. It doesn't have to be a piece of art. It just needs to be useful to me when I'm drawing. So, and it's already there. This is just like, I don't know, maybe I can get it like 1% better or something. So I don't know how much longer this will be. I'll probably stream at least another hour and then kind of evaluate at that point, see where I'm at. I think I'm done with this block of clay. I'm not going to be adding anything. Like I have this amount that I've been screwing with and picking little bits off of when I need it. And this is all I will ever, this is way more than I'll ever need to do whatever I'm going to do with this. So I don't have to be carving anymore off this. I got my tools at the ready. There's some I haven't even used yet, and I don't think I'll ever need. Like I can get this out of my way. That was sort of useful. That was sort of useful. The knife is useful a little bit. I'm just trying to clean up my workspace a little bit to focus. I'm kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm not using these correctly. I bought these just for this, thinking like, oh, that might be useful. And I imagined they would work differently than they work. Which means probably I'm not using them correctly, which is very likely because, as I said, not a sculptor. Oh, I didn't clip my nails. I'm going to have to just be very careful. But they're kind of interesting, and I might try to play with them a little bit more at this stage. But overall, like I'm finding, like I don't think I understand what these are meant for and what they're good for. As I've been trying to use them, I feel like I'm causing more trouble for myself than solving problems. It's sort of nice as a very crude smoothing tool. Like if I have a real hard edge or really something that looks clumpy, I can go in and go like and kind of, but it's not going to be perfect. Like ultimately, I'm still preferring using my fingers to try and really make something more even. I don't know. I might continue to fiddle with these, but probably not as much. I'm having the best luck with just the simple, like just this kind of stuff and my fingers. Welcome back, Dee Dee. I'm drawing clownfish for today's Inktober. Looking at one straight on, looks like an alien. You know, it's funny. In my visual references for the aliens, I do have some sea creatures, and I have some like embryo faces, things like that. None of it is exactly right. You can't look at this and say any of it. It's like, oh, that's clearly, this particular fish or this kind of embryo. Like it's not, but it just kind of gets me like in the mindset of like something like that. And we have a guest. Let's see here. Mr. Kerr, how you doing, man?
Good, and yourself?
Good. I feel like we're both, me more recently, working slightly out of our normal medium.
Yeah.
You've been doing a lot more
I'm
than
probably I'm probably going back to my normal medium. I took a year or two off to divert, but ink and black and white stuff is typically where I work.
Yeah, see, that's where I started too. This, as I said in the last stream, is pretty unfamiliar for me.
Hmm.
It reminds to Mark Maron's podcast a lot, and he's talked a lot about that he's picked up acoustic guitar recently.
Oh yeah.
And what he loves about it is there's no goal attached to it. He's not trying to like, someday I'm going to get good enough where I can perform, or someday I'm going to be the best guitarist. It's just kind of for fun. And it's as a result, it's a nice like hobby. It's something he can work to get better at and play around with. But because there's no expectation of expertise, it kind of diffuses the potential frustration with it. And I feel like this is a similar thing for me. Like, I'm actually really enjoying this because I have no ambition of like, I'm going to become a great sculptor. It's just sort of nice to fiddle around with. But...
Right. Yeah. I like kind of playing with other stuff with less pressure.
Yeah.
Sometimes as well.
Which is definitely not the case for me in drawing, where I'm always trying to do the best I possibly can, and I'm very aware of my inadequacies and uncomfortable with them, and like I'm not experiencing that with this. But...
Right. I'm gonna turn on my background layer here.
What are you doing today?
Waiting for the kids to wake up from their nap, so I'll have to bail at some point. Hopefully they'll sleep for a while.
You sound is it your mic, or you sound a little congested or something? Or you
I worked till 6 in the morning, so I just woke up.
That would do it. There you go.
Yeah. So yeah, it's probably just the I haven't spoken words to humans yet voice.
There you go.
But yeah. So you're doing I missed the first stream, but you're doing a sculpture for like lighting and stuff.
Yeah, lighting and angles.
Mm-hmm.
I think I said in the first one, like, I'm pretty comfortable drawing human heads and imagining and visualizing a human head looking up, looking down, twisted aside, whatever.
Yeah.
But the alien anatomy as I draw it is just different enough.
Is it just alien enough?
It's just alien enough where I'm not comfortable visualizing it. And I tend to... It's very easy because it doesn't have like the kind of big angles and distinct features of a human face.
Yeah.
It can become so generalized that you're just sort of drawing a light bulb shape.
Right.
And it comes off as very cartoony. Like, I felt, because we're going to be seeing one particular alien a lot, you'll be able to buy it more if I can really dial him in those little subtle features and start replicating that in the drawing. It won't look so much like, oh, here's his head, it's another balloon shape,
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because even the human head has a lot of just very round curvature with no real sharp angles, but your aliens are definitely even more so.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense. I've often thought like, oh man, it would be cool to have like a maquette for whatever I'm working on. Like I have almost 3D printed a skull so many times.
Yeah.
For that exact reason.
Because I have a little collection of them in my office at work. Skulls, which are handy. And what I've used in the past, I think I did an Instagram post of this years ago, to kind of get me in the ballpark of an alien face shape, is a skull without a mandible, where it's like you've got mostly head, and then like you can maybe even visualize it with this. Like if you had the nose like right around where the mouth is.
Yeah.
And like eyes in the same spot, and like you can kind of imagine like if there were teeth along the base of this jaw, like how this is just an upper skull,
Yeah, right.
That's kind of, that helped me always visualize the shape of their head. but again, only roughly. So
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Sometimes I'm kicking myself and wondering, why did I choose this particular series in a style where I have to draw hundreds of thousands of lines for every drawing?
yeah.
Usually that's when I'm working with feathers that I wonder those things out loud to myself
Well,
in my garage.
yeah, my dinosaurs in D versus M are often feathered, and
Yeah.
they do make me question my life choices when I'm drawing them.
And then there's always the argument, well, like, why don't you just use like a Photoshop brush? And
Yeah.
it never it never turns out like you want. It always looks
No,
slightly mechanical, even if
it looks
the
like a
brush,
Photoshop brush. Like
yeah,
it looks, yeah,
yeah, even if the brush is designed specifically for that thing, it still feels designed and mechanical and
yeah,
repetitive, because I mean, by definition, there's going to be some sort of pattern when you're using those brushes, and there's less of a pattern with the human hand.
yes. Yeah, because no matter, I mean, unless you're doing a massive sample,
Yeah,
yeah, you're going to start to see the repeats. And that drives
yeah,
me crazy. And it's one of those things probably nobody else cares about, but nor should they. But when I can see a pattern in art or in a video game or even in a movie, like sometimes you can tell like they CG'd the trees in the background because you see the same tree,
right. Yeah.
like that, it does take me out of it. So
One of the things that students do often is they'll do exactly that. They'll draw one tree and then all the trees are that one tree. And I'm like,
yeah,
at least draw three trees. If
yeah.
you're going to do, at least have, you know, 3 to 5, just so that you're less likely to see it.
Or like once you drop them, then whatever, depending on your program,
Yeah. Then mess with it. Yeah, exactly.
mess with each one, like
Yeah.
distort them, or like that. I'll do that sometimes when I'm using a font and I want it to look less fonty.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll drop it in with Illustrator, but then I'll expand it and I'll start like screwing with each letter, just so to, like, especially repeating letters, just to
Right.
make it, a little less obvious. But
Yeah, that makes sense. Josh, I used to think this was nuts until I kind of got more into stuff, but he hand draws all of his lettering, and I kind of understand why, for that same
yeah,
kind of repeating pattern thing. Because even if you have like a hand drawn, like font, it's still, there's not enough variation for it to not look like a computer.
yeah,
I'm going too fast now.
yeah. I definitely see the the case for hand lettering. I get it.
Yeah.
And there are some things I do digitally that I have no mixed feelings on at all. I'm totally comfortable with that. But then there
Yeah.
are things like lettering where it's like, if I had more time, I like, this is strictly a time saving thing. I don't
Mhm.
love this solution, but I gotta um
You have to draw the line somewhere.
yeah, I gotta streamline this process somewhere. And because they take long enough. And if I'm doing I think I've said this before, in a perfect world, I would have traditional. That's an interesting form of the word, but I would have traditional all of D versus M.
Yeah.
Because that's my orientation. I'm old school. I'm old, therefore I'm old school. Like I learned pencil and pen and ink and all that stuff. Like that's my go-to when I picture drawing.
Yeah.
That's what I visualize.
What's your definition of old? I'm constantly, because I not hang out with, but I work with 19 to 22 year olds
Yeah,
all the time.
I'm 47. I'll be 48 in January.
Yeah.
No.
But what do you define as old? Because I'm kind of curious. Because I'm
Oh,
42.
how would I define old?
Yeah, I mean, because I joke that I'm old because I'm twice the age of my students.
Right. That's yeah. And I,
You know.
especially the last place I worked, I was 10 years older than everybody else. So I like just kind of got to thinking myself as old, even though I didn't feel like I was actually old. I would say it's funny, it gets pushed back as you get older. I never would have said this when I was in my 20s, but to me, old doesn't sound right, at least until you're in your 60s, you know? Yeah. And then
sorry.
Like by the time I'm 70, I think I would very comfortably call myself old.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm old and I'm defined with it.
One time I was sitting in church next to my 80-year-old grandfather, and there was a 95-year-old man that was talking to my grandfather, and he said, "Oh, you're 80 whatever," and he said, "So you're just a spring chicken."
Just a right.
And I thought my grandpa is an octogenarian. How?
Right.
But like from somebody who's like, you know, mid 90s, somebody who's 15 years younger than him is a spring chicken. And I just thought, well, that's an interesting perspective.
Here's the question. When would you say someone, this is another thing that keeps moving. When would you say someone is not a kid anymore?
My answer is really annoying because I think that is very much a emotional intelligence and maturity level than an age.
Yeah. But okay, here's maybe a better. I totally appreciate what you're saying and agree. Here's a better question, or that gets more to it. At what point, if someone was calling themselves like, I'm still a kid or I'm still young or whatever, you know,
or at what point is it weird?
Kind of roll your eyes and say like, I hate to break this to you, but you're not a kid anymore. Like
probably 10
to 12.
Really? Well, and I'll tell you what I'm basing that on. I'm basing that on my daughter Scarlett is, you could either call her a mercenary or an entrepreneur, but her ability to earn money is amazing. Like but what's really interesting is for the first decade of her life, she was trading on her youth and cuteness. Like she would just make garbage.
Hold on, hold your thought. I'm just pausing you. I'm going to let Scott lost his show. So looking to let him. Scott, how you doing?
Scott.
Hey, what's up, party people?
We're here with Corey Kerr.
Hi, Corey Kerr.
I don't know if you caught the conversation, but
I heard octogenarian, and then at what age are you being silly when you're saying
are you not a kid anymore? And so continue, Corey.
Oh yeah. Okay. So she would, she would just like find a bunch of rocks, spend 3 seconds painting each one something, set up a card table on the side of the road, and she would sell rocks and make like $60 that day because she was 6. Not because anybody cared about the rocks. You know what I mean?
Of course. They see a little girl at the side of the road selling something. And
yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I try that all the time. I try to sell stuff on the side of the road, and
doesn't work.
I usually just get harassed by the cops.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, so I would say when society stopped giving her money because she was a young, cute little girl.
Got it.
I think she started to realize, I've got to add value to this situation.
Yeah, like I can't. Yeah.
And she was even like full on capitalist, like sweatshop. She would get like all her friends and the neighborhood kids to like assembly line this garbage,
like Tom Sawyer.
And then she would pay them. Yeah.
She would pay them a percentage. Like she wouldn't give them the full amount.
No, they would always get screwed out of it. And it was like, well, I guess they know what they signed up for or whatever. But
yeah, I mean, because they're not on the side of the road with her, right? Like she's the one out there hustling. So
so she'll also employ like salespeople, like to be on the side of the road, and they'll run shifts. And she has a different cut commission structure with that.
Is your child a mutant? Is she like really like 45 years old and she's like transported herself into a young body? Because that's crazy.
She is like unnervingly intelligent. Like concerningly so, but to the point where like her book smarts don't match. Like her emotional intelligence is what you would expect for her age, but her intelligence is pretty high. So she screws stuff up all the time emotionally. So she'll do all these things that make sense on paper, but like just don't work because she's screwing her friends out of money, or whatever. But like, they agree
that
to the
makes
contract
perfect sense to me. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. No,
But
but this is why sometimes I cringe when you hear about these like 13-year-olds that they're putting in college, or like a 16-year-old who's going to med school. It's like, yeah, okay, they might be smart enough to keep up with the classes, but can you really say they're ready for this? Like emotionally, intellectually, that's
no. Like even if you're like 16 and you're just ahead of your class and you like go to junior college, like I've met people like that.
Yep.
And it's just like, yeah, they're smart enough to do the work, but they're dumb enough to get taken advantage of.
Right. They're not ready.
Yeah.
They're not ready. There's more to it than just what you know. There's like a whole like emotional, just being a sophisticated human being thing. We got another look at this full house. Jim Lujan.
Jonathan.
Oh, hello. Hey, am I coming up really choppy?
Are you on a CB radio?
I don't know. You guys sound really choppy, and I don't know if it's my signal or what.
I think it's you. You sound like you're radioing it. You sound like the helicopter guy on the news. I've always we're seeing a traffic jam right here at the exit ramp.
I've always found the video quality on the CB radios to be slightly lower than
yes, that's true.
So. Anyways, I can't. You guys sound like helicopter to me too right now.
Okay, I think it's you because everyone else sounds fine to me.
I've seen another stream with Jim here, and he's always in his car. Like, do you only call in from your car?
Jim actually lives in his car.
Oh, after this, he's going to put on some wraparound shades and say something political for his Instagram.
That sounds like a very specific reference that I don't know the.
It just that seems to be the cliche is put on some wraparound shades, get in your car, talk about the government.
Okay.
How does this sound?
Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear. You're just
we hear you. You just sound. It sounds like a ham radio. It sounds.
Hey, somebody give me a convincing reason that I don't have to draw every feather.
I'm gonna have to leave and come back.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll be here. Right. I can't think of a reason why you don't have to draw that. You're too far down the path now.
I know. And I did 6 wings, 3 pairs of wings here. So I'm on 3 of 6 right now.
Scott, what are you working on?
I am working on my Drawtober stuff. So
that's right.
Yeah, for your listeners or viewers. I do Drawtober every year, but I create my own prompt list because that Inktober guy's a dick. So I just do my own thing. I don't. Honestly, it was always so weird to me before I found out he was a dick. That everyone was just like, "Oh, this guy says the words to do, and we draw them." I'm like, "What? Why? Why are we following? Why is everyone doing this?"
Right.
And so, I want to be part of the community, but I also
want to do your own thing.
I want to do my own thing. I want to draw comics. Like I don't want to take a month off to draw some random guy's prompt list. So I just create my own and I turn that into a comic book every year. So this year I'm working on my second book, Wanders of Melisande. I do 2 books, second shift, and then Wanders of Melisande. So this year is Wanders of Melisande. And I try to work ahead as much as possible. So I'm actually on the last day.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So you
I work ahead as much as possible?
What's your unit of measure? Are you doing like a panel a day, a page a day, or just a time
it's essentially period a day? Okay, so it's an image a day, just like the regular Inktober stuff. So, but it's either a full page splash, a double page splash, or single panels, and that's just how this book Wanders actually works. So it could be any one of those things, but today is a full page splash. So it's the most involved of the images that I'm doing, really. Like there's 5 characters on it. So it's the one that's going to take the most time. So that's actually why it's the last one. But it's actually, I think, day 20, 25 or 26, something like that. So I need to get it done relatively soon because it's coming up. But then as soon as I finish this, then my Drawtober stuff is done and I can go back to drawing my other book, Second Shift.
Cool.
Yeah. Busy. That's awesome. So, all right, Gary. We need to talk more conspiracy theories.
Okay.
I know another top 5 for you, and it's
Oh,
top 5 conspiracy theories.
That is the best idea ever.
that would be a good one. That would be a fun one.
Yeah, I would be very curious to what you guys would come up with.
So would it be, help me hash this out. Would it be your favorite 5 or the 5 you like most?
The 5 you most
take
hope
most seriously, like
the 5 you hope an extreme politician doesn't grab a hold of and use.
Or that, yeah, like 5 most dangerous, 5 most like what 5 are we talking about?
Yeah, man, I don't know. I think
probably the most entertaining 5.
Yes, I was gonna say your favorite one.
Yeah, Dee Dee's with
because
you.
then
She makes up her own prompts, by the way.
Right on. That's awesome.
I think a lot of people do their own.
Yeah,
I think even from the start, that was kind of the suggestion. But
yeah, like I think doing your favorite conspiracy theories more than likely would be your most interesting ones and the ones that are the most compelling. So
well, and it becomes fun because, like, I think part of the top 5 is explaining your choice. So whatever you're picking, at least if you're enthusiastic about it, you'll say like why it's interesting to you. But I mean, just off the top of my head, I'm not committing to this because I think that's a good suggestion, and I'll think about it more then. But the JFK stuff is pretty fascinating to me. The JFK assassination stuff. I feel like I'm very middle of the road with it, where as someone, and again, I'm not an expert. I'm better at this than I am at sculpting, but I can shoot. I know every time I hear someone say like, "Oh, Oswald couldn't have even made those shots," it's like, that's ridiculous. He absolutely couldn't have made those shots. Those are very doable shots. But if you know kind of what you're doing, and he kind of knew what he was doing. And there's also lucky shots. Let's not forget in the world that, it's like, maybe, could he shoot like that every day? But sometimes things come together, and like, he showed up that day, he performed, he had Eye of the Tiger, and it happened, so I don't know. It may, just because he normally couldn't do it doesn't necessarily mean anything. That all said, I find it there's enough around it where it's hard for me to accept that this like lone nut thing, that he was just some wacko who had it out for the president. Like, there's just enough where it's like, yeah, but what was the deal with him going to Russia and coming back? And what was the deal with like this? Why is some of this stuff still classified? And like, what is, it's just enough where it's like, I don't know, it smells fishy to me. It smells fishy.
What's really interesting about government conspiracies is that is always the X factor of believability. Is you're like, as soon as you say, I just couldn't see it. Yeah. The actual stuff that governments of the world have actually done is so nuts.
Yeah,
it adds plausibility to so many of those.
That's the thing, and this is, and again, this, I know a lot of people maybe listening would be like, "Oh, now you're talking like a conspiracy theorist." But the idea that there was a plot, or at least like a basic conspiracy around the Kennedy thing, is only incomprehensible and crazy if you ignore things that have happened everywhere else in the world.
Yep.
Like, where this is not like, talk about South and Central America, talk about the build up to the Vietnam War. Like, there's stuff where it's like, if you look at what has happened that we know from history, not even controversial takes, like this is actually what went down. The idea that, 3 people in a room might have talked about what are we going to do about Kennedy is not insane at all. Like, it's very, especially that era in history.
Well,
it's
and even like
time in history. But.
Yeah, and even like what we have done, domestically and in other countries as well.
Of course, and that's why. I mean, I think Oliver Stone is a bit of a lunatic, personally, my opinion. But, I think he's not crazy to, when he talks about Kennedy, draw in all like everything that we were doing in Central and South America, everything we were doing in Southeast Asia, everything we were doing, like, when you look at that constellation of, that era in particular, and stuff that we are, like, the American government itself was involved in. Yeah. I don't think it's that big of a reach to say, to me, what would be a very like not crazy thing to say, which is like maybe some people knew it was a dangerous situation, but sort of turned a blind eye. Maybe some people kind of like, like I'm gonna kind of sleep on this like threat we got, or like whatever, like kind of like weird connections between the mob and Castro, and I don't know, there's just enough, where it's like, I can't just write it all off as, it's just Oswald being a lunatic. It was just some nut, like there's something there. I actually, I can't say with any authority, there's something there. There's enough there where I'm not confident saying, you're all a bunch of crazies. It was just Oswald, like, I don't know.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad I brought up this topic.
Yeah.
The suggestion.
I'm going to maximize my window briefly to show my alien progress. And then we'll go back to everybody. Let's see here. Where am I? How do I? First, I have to remember how to do that. There we go. I did some basic. Let's see here. Whoa. It's not focusing. You can kind of see some basic facial, like, like little. So anyway. Okay.
Let me see the back.
The back is very unfeatured right now. So like that's, I think, what I was going to just.
It looks like an upside down testicle.
This looks very, inverted. This is very light bulby. That's why I want to do a little bit of the occiput and like the muscles that would be like, I want to allude to more anatomy going on back here. This again is why I'm doing this, because I was telling Corey, like drawing these, it's very easy to slip into like light bulb shape and not have a lot.
Your knowledge of anatomy is actually quite impressive.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's
like you're living.
It's my living, yeah. And all the way back to college, because after I got, I think as I brought up before when we were talking about Graham Hancock and the Sphinx and things, when I first started at NAU, I thought I wanted to be an archaeologist. And studied that, and I realized very quickly, if I wanted to do old world archaeology, which was most interesting to me, I kind of needed to be in Europe. So that wasn't going to, but being in the Southwest, I was going to be digging up broken pots and, like it was not going to be that. And I just, no shade to the people who do that. It's important work, but like, I just wasn't interested in that. And at the same time, by luck, I was offered an internship at the Maricopa County Medical Examiner's Office and with the forensic anthropologist. And that, it was just a perfect timing where I was like, this is more interesting to me. And plus I liked that it was, it had a practical application. I was never totally comfortable with the fact that I was never totally comfortable with the idea of a purely academic career. I wanted some practical application. And forensic anthropology was like this. Not only do I get to sit and really drill down on anatomy and bones and like really get to know this stuff, but there's a practical application. Someone finds a skeleton in the woods or in the desert, they want to know who this person is, and now I have something to do. Like that was interesting to me. So then I switched all my classes over to like physical anthropology, anatomy, forensic stuff, and like just all of that. And while my career has gone a couple different ways since I graduated, at least right now it's heavy in that. So it keeps you sharp on your anatomy, I guess is the bright side.
Yeah, I don't know shit.
I'm the same. I know what I'm looking at when I look at a reference photo that I need to look at often.
Right. Yeah, I know some of the muscle groups, that just comes from like years of working out, but beyond that.
Well, I think you're both, just for that example alone, selling yourself a little short. I mean, just knowing, I think someone who's spent any time in a gym knows a lot more about anatomy than the average person. You know.
Yeah, but comparing me to Scott, I'm gonna walk that way back. For example, I'm excited that I can do 2 pull-ups with a weighted backpack on right now. That's a different level of fitness than
How weighted a backpack?
just the backpack that I carry. So it's got my laptop, iPad, sketchbook, and peripherals, and so it's not. It's
To be
not like
fair, you're coming off a series of injuries and illnesses.
yeah. That's
that,
kind of
like,
why I'm pretty
pull-ups
excited.
with a weighted backpack, I think, is way above average. You know, like when again
Sure.
looking at the average person you meet on the street who probably can do 0 pull-ups.
I think more people could do pull-ups than they think. I think pull-ups are one of those things that if you work at it for about a month, you can get to pull-ups pretty quick.
If you work at it, but I would say most people probably don't. You know?
Oh, sure.
Right.
I'm assuming this number hasn't changed, but at least with women, I thought I remembered reading once that the average number of push-ups or pull-ups the average woman can do is 0. Like that's the overwhelming majority cannot do 1.
An American, the stat I read was an American female that can do 1 pull-up is in the top 1% of the population.
Yes. Yeah, that's, and I would say men is probably not that much better. You know, I bet the average man can do 1. You know, like, and again, I think probably we think of normally like fairly able-bodied people, but walk down the street, like the guys you see in the mall, how many pull-ups do you think they can do? I would probably think not a lot. They'd be lucky if they could squeak out 1. But I think...
What else do you think women aren't good at, Gary?
I was about to say, I bet other lifts they would naturally be better because they have such a lower center of gravity. Because men just have genetically, upper body strength is more of a natural component. But
denser
bones. What men genetically better at, Corey? Like, let's just start. Let's really get all of us canceled today. Jim's back. Oh no, Jim, he popped out again. I was going to say that's our next top 5. Top 5 things women are not good at. But by the way, everyone, I hope you know I'm being ridiculous. I
bet like deadlift, if you compare like not weight to weight, but like some sort of adjusted figure for like body weight to the percent that you're deadlifting, like somebody who's not training on either gender, I bet women would be more natural at that.
There's got to be.
I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I feel like the biggest poser ever because it's been over a year since I've lifted at all.
I cannot. Honestly, yeah, it's been forever since I've done any kind of resistance training. I do yoga and walking and stuff like that, but like in terms of actual weights, it's been a long time.
You're missing out, man. That's where all the good stuff is.
Well, it's something I need to transition to because especially as you get older, circling back to
bone density,
being old, the loss of muscle is a thing, and that definitely can affect your overall health. So I'm starting to think about the fact that I need to start emphasizing strength training and resistance training and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've gotten away from it. I don't know, in the last 5 months, honestly. I haven't worked out very often. And I'm just like trying to get back into it now just to, I do my intermittent fasting and that really keeps a lot of the weight off, but it's not everything. Like I'm definitely way heavier than I usually am. And it's thankfully that, the fasting is keeping me in check a bit, but it's like, hey man, I can't do all the work here. So
yeah, that's a thing I'm starting to note. Like it took me forever to realize, I think when I was young, I thought being fit and keeping your weight in check was more about exercise than by diet. And you realize that like actually diet is 75% of it.
Very important.
It's so much. But I think at least I'm finding as I get older, like I think it starts to slowly shift. Like you can eat everything perfect all the time. And there's still like, you're going to have to bump up the exercise. Like you can't get away with it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's much harder to lose the weight than it was before as well.
Yeah.
So like I'm 43 and my weight loss, it's like I could usually, if I started dieting and eating clean, I could probably lose 5 pounds in like 4 or 5 days, something like that.
Yeah.
It's not like that anymore. So
Yeah.
it kind of
No,
sucks.
I remember there were times in my 20s and 30s where I would think like, getting a little heavy. Got to get serious. And like it felt like, of course it wasn't this, but it almost felt like a couple weeks, eating tuna salad and salads and taking walks. Like it's back in check. Like it's good. Like that's, it's just minimal effort. It's like just a little course correction.
Yeah,
now
exactly.
It's like, no, it's sustained effort for months to start to see like,
Genetically, I should be 350 pounds. Like if you look at a lot of my cousins and uncles and stuff. So it's never been that easy for me to do that. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. Because I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, and then I was a rock climber that was climbing for 3 to 5 times a week for years, and kind of did some more aggressive extreme sports and things. And then you get married and have kids, and a lot of those activities just take so long. Like
sure.
it's like a 6 to 12 hour commitment to go climbing,
Right.
And so I just never had the time to pop over after work and, climb a route or whatever. So I kind of moved to other things, but I still had the mentality of somebody who was very active. And about 3 or 4 years ago, I was like, you know what? You're an illustrator. You don't need a 6-pack. Like you can the physique that you're beating yourself up for not having is totally useless to you. Right. I don't need, when I take my shirt off, I don't care if people are impressed or not. You know what I mean? There's no dating functionality to that. There's no,
right. Yeah.
I mean, and so at this point, not that I'm letting myself go, but I've given myself permission to be a middle-aged guy.
There's a new acceptable baseline. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think the level of commitment that I would have to do to get to even something moderately not embarrassing is just not something that's worth my time.
Yep.
In my current thing. So it's kind of an interesting thing. And I remember my uncle, who's a bodybuilder for the Air Force. I remember he got into the same position, was just there's people who work out, and then there's people who train, and people who train, in the gym, that's a whole different.
Yeah. That's never been, I've never kidded myself into thinking one of these days I'm going to do the, what is the stupid one where you go through the, I'm blanking on the name. They have all these stations. It's this high intensity,
CrossFit?
Maybe CrossFit I'm thinking of.
CrossFit,
yeah,
the cult of fame. How to lift inappropriately and not care about form.
Yeah, and it's no, that's never been interesting to me. I just want to be above average healthy. It's not even about the look. I just want to feel like I can pick up a thing if I have to.
Right. My new thing, my new thing is much more functionally. I want to lay down at night and not choke on acid reflux all night because I'm too fat.
That would be,
there you go.
I'd like to be able to sit in a chair and not be injured just because I'm sitting.
Yeah, I want good blood work, which I do right now. Knock on wood. But I want to maintain that. Just basic. I want to be healthy. That's all. And there's a minimum amount of exercise I think you need to do that, which I'm not doing as much as I should. But.
So Scott, when you say you're not working out, I know some people that their version of not working out is they're only doing it for 5 hours a week. You know what I mean? It's I've cut down. I'm not working out that much because I used to work out 12 hours a week or whatever. You know what I mean? Where are you actually at?
I work out maybe once or twice a week for 45 minutes.
That's good.
What I used to do was 4 or 5 days for an hour.
Right.
And so I was getting 5 hours a week, which is really good. And then now it's way less. And something that you can do, that everyone can do, that's pretty easy to kind of get you back into the swing of things is push-ups. So if you're a girl, do girl push-ups, unless you can do just standard standing on your toes push-ups. But if you can do like set some goals, so like I have a goal of 25 a day, and a lot of times that's all I'm doing is just 25 a day. And then so about 2 to 3 days a week I actually get a full workout in. But that's just most recently. And normally, or not normally, but the last 5 months it was like not even the 25 push-ups a day. So that was something I started again about a month ago. And then it was pretty good for the first like 15 days, and then just some stuff came up and kind of got out of rhythm, but I'm trying to get back into rhythm now. And like that's the baseline. So if you can do 25 push-ups a day, you're going to see some advancement, some physical changes. Like by the end of the month, you're going to feel a little bit stronger. So it's real simple to do, and I'm trying to increase that and do at least 50 a day as opposed to the 25. Yeah. And then, I used to do 100. I used to do 100 a day.
Are you talking about cumulative in a day or in one set?
I would do 4 sets of 25. Yeah, just like back to back to back. So I would like bang out 25. I'd rest a little bit, do another 25, and so on and so forth. And then I would do crunches as well. I would do like on average before I stopped working out, I was doing probably like 500 to 1,000 crunches a night before bed. And it's honestly not that hard, really. Like if you can do different.
If you're doing those correctly, it's not as taxing as people think.
Yeah, exactly. And there's just different types of crunches you can do as well. So it changes it up so you kind of don't get bored. And like I think that's a lot of the problem with working out is people get bored doing it. And so if you can just kind of change up what you're doing while you're doing it, so like I'll do standard crunches. I call them the toe touch crunches. I don't know all the much like the anatomy, I don't know all the technical terms, but I call it the toe touch crunches. So it's like where you stick your feet straight up in the air and the sit and reach. I call them the sit and reach crunch. So it's like you stick your feet straight up in the air, and then you do the slide up movement towards your toes. So it's this.
I've heard those described as pike.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just call them sit and reach because that's what we had to do when we were kids, And then you could do the side crunches. You do both sides. You do 50 on each side, and then just go through a set. Like I would do sets of 25 of everything, and then just do 5 sets of those, and then before you know it, you're at 1,000 and you're good to go.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I should try. Mostly like when the biggest thing I try to keep up on is planking.
Oh yeah, planking is real good.
Planking's pretty good for you. Yeah,
which it's like a good overall core thing. And my lower back's a little tweaked, probably from too much sitting and drawing in my life, but which makes crunches and sit-ups and stuff like not great. Like I don't love it. Like it's just uncomfortable. But like planking is a thing where it's like you're getting some core benefit, but you're not like at least in my experience, maybe someone else has been different. I've never thrown my back out planking, or screwed up my back where like, but like crunching or sit-ups and stuff like that, it's like, sometimes it feels bad.
Yeah, I hear you. Everybody's different, there's different exercises that are way easier for people than others. Like there's a bunch of like back workouts I see people do at the gym, and I'm just like, I don't think my body works like that. Like every time I do them, I feel worse. I was like, I don't like that. I feel like, I'm taking a step back. Corey, what are you working on there?
Corey?
Oh, you on mute?
Is Corey there? Is Corey
still... Dee in the chat said later, Corey. Did Corey say he has to go? Oh, it says BR. I'm sorry. It says BR.
Oh, BR. Oh, I'm not even looking at his screen. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah.
I am dumb. Thank you for seeing that, Dee.
Yeah. All right. I have done some basic back of the neck anatomy there. Just
that looks good.
Just to add something. So,
did you ever see the Alex Ross's channel? Like he has sculpted figures that he's done.
No.
Yeah, he actually did sculpted figures of the Fantastic Four, and he uses them as reference, like lighting and everything like that, getting hard angles. So
I'd
just
like
so
to see that.
yeah, his channel is really cool.
I don't think I'm even follow. I didn't realize he had a YouTube channel.
Yeah, my algorithm just shoots me artists nonstop. So
Yeah.
as soon as he had a new video, it's like, hey, you might like this guy, and I was like, you are correct, I do.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem.
Nap well at the same time.
Oh, kids are awake. That's what the first part said. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, you're good. What are you working on there, Corey?
So I'm doing a series called Esoteric Crumble Flux. What's up, buddy? I am not talking to Paul Pate. I'm talking to Gary Hodges and Scott Lost. Do you want to come in and hang out? Okay. And it's kind of a series of things that could end the world or pieces of advice. So I'm still trying to figure out.
Can you
exactly
zoom in on the face there, or maybe scroll, like go from top to bottom?
Yeah. So there's the wings.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
just a sec, buddy.
Is it a coincidence? I felt like you went and looked at those antique books.
Oh, 100%.
And I saw a lot of drawing like this. Did that kind of jumpstart your interest in, like, what was the pivot?
Yeah. So I was very much looking for my next project.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was because I had just finished Shades. You can have them, buddy. But I don't think there's anything in there. I had just finished Shades, and I had started Yield Modernity, that strip that I was doing, and then I'd started a couple other things. And they were okay, but it wasn't. I hadn't like struck like what I was hitting yet. And when I saw those, I remembered when I was 20, I lived in Scotland.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I was on a mission for my church, and so I did that for a couple of years. And somebody gave me like a really old Bible, like one of those like leather bound giant, like 5-inch thick Bibles, and they had these illustrations in it, and I always loved that. And so when I came across that kind of like rare bookstore, I don't know what that was, like a month ago or something.
Yeah.
They let me. They found out that I was a professor, and so they let me go into the back room and like flip through these pages.
Well, that's cool.
And it was really neat. There was was it 17th century? I think it was 17th century illustrated Shakespeare book.
Oh wow.
And then there was also like a 15th century Bible that they let me look through, and I took a bunch of pictures of it and stuff. And it was just, bye, see you later. I'm gonna go walk around. And so anyway, so yeah, that I said I bet I could do something interesting with that. Like I loved those old sculptures of the apostles, where like Peter has the key and they're holding their hands in specific ways, and like it's very it's very symbolism in the way that they're. Okay, I'll change her in a minute. It's all symbolism in the way that they're. Everything is symbolic. So I thought I bet I could do that, but like modernize it.
Yeah.
And so what I'm doing is it's all modern concerns of like electronic distraction and, like manipulation by billionaires, tech billionaires, but done in like a very old kind of engraving, scratch board style.
Very cool. Yeah, that's a very cool image, man.
Now that I think about it, kind of a logical next step from your Ye Old Modernity strip that you were doing. Like, I think it's that similar kind of talk about modern things in an
old way. Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, the pitch for that, the elevator pitch for that comic was, modern problems in ancient times. And so this is a pretty clear offshoot of that. Yeah. But the style of that was meant to be really fast. Like I intended for it to be like a really quick thing.
It doesn't seem like it ended up that way. It seems like it might have got away from you.
Yeah, that always does. I'm not a fast When I do
it just looks like there's tons of detail in there.
Yeah.
Is the thing. Apologies for everyone in the chat who has to see my giant face, but I'm doing this on my cell phone. I'm at my sister's house, so I don't have all of my headphones, so I don't have like my laptop jack. And so like my phone is posted up on my laptop, so I have to put my giant face towards the screen to see it.
What am I looking at next? What is that cylinder next to you? What is that?
Oh, it's a coffee. Tea.
Oh,
it's a coffee container.
Forced perspective. I was like, is that like a punching bag? What is that? Like,
yeah, just fucking back here.
Right. Yeah. It looks enormous. But.
Yeah. I know. Hey, it's not making comics, so I can't have a beer, so I'm having a tea.
Hi. Hi. Do you want to talk to everybody? Sorry, I'm probably really annoying now that I'm like covered in kids.
That's what happens when you have kids.
Yeah, I've got a 12-year-old and a 4-year-old and a almost 2-year-old. Stop touching the buttons.
Oh, wow.
I don't want you to touch the buttons.
That's a good range.
Stop.
It's only a matter of time before, not comparing pets to kids, but it's only a matter of time before my cat wakes up and thinks I'm talking to him and comes in here and starts yelling. So.
Yeah.
I think
Gary,
kids,
you're a monster.
Hi. Kids under 1 are very similar to most pets.
Actually, my brother, I have a 6-year-old nephew, and when he first had Jerry, he told me, he's like, it's a lot like having a puppy. Like it's not, like that. A baby is sort of or like a 1 or 2-year-old. It's puppy level. It's
I remember I had a graphic designer that worked for me, and she got a puppy. And as she was describing it, I just thought, you're waking up in the middle of the night. You're basically cleaning up poop and pee while they're training. They can't talk to communicate what it is that they want.
Right.
And that's where I become like the evil guy. Is I take that and extrapolate it out to, I have zero reason why I think it's worth it to have a cat or dog in the house, because it's like all of the worst things of having a human in the house and none of the benefits.
None of the perks.
They never grow out of that. They never. It's not
Some
like
of them do. Some of them are really like, I love older dogs. I think older dogs are the best. Like
older dogs, I do prefer older dogs. Yeah.
Puppies are, great to play with. They're great to, have around for a little bit if they're not yours. But then when you own them,
that's how I feel about kids.
Yeah, exactly. They're pissing and shitting every 30 seconds, and you're like, oh, you got to go back outside again. And but the older dogs, they're usually potty trained by then. They're very chill. They're very calm, and you can just hang out with them. Like my dog, he's just laying on my bed right now. He's just very very relaxed.
Yeah.
None
of my kids have ever gotten to the stage of being relaxed. They're starting to lose it a bit. I gotta go, guys. It was good talking to you.
Good talking to you, Corey. All right, take care.
Okay. See ya.
All right, Gary. What else are women not good at?
I'm not gonna say that. Women are great.
Why did that sound like such a lie when you just said that?
I don't, because it's a weird thing to have to say out loud, but I'm
sorry. I'll stop doing that to you.
Actually, this won't be a shock to, I think, many people who have watched, especially people who tend to troll me. I always found it easier to bond with women than men. I always found it easier to talk to women than men. I think I actually, for most of my life, I've had more female friends. I don't know.
I grew up with 2 sisters and my mom's, so
you probably have that ability.
Yeah. Super easy.
I think the problem was, it's still the case now, but especially as a kid, I wasn't into sports and I was hyperverbal. And like that kind of just made you unable to relate to most guys you met. Like it just wasn't. I always found like all these boys in grade school, it's like they don't talk. Like they don't have anything to say. Like they just they want to talk, and if they do talk, they want to talk about how their team's doing, and I don't know anything about their team. So
I just wanted to talk about cartoons, and toys. That's pretty much it.
If I could find, and those were my friends, the ones where it's like, let's talk about Voltron,
right?
Let's talk about Nintendo.
Totally.
Like that I could do, but if it strayed from that, I just wasn't great. But like, when my parents divorced, I was probably about 10 or 11.
Okay.
And we lived with my mom, and like she and I could just like talk all the time, and I think it just was an easier, more familiar, like I've always found it easier to talk to women generally, obviously there's exceptions since some of my best friends are men, but if I had to if you told me like you have to have lunch with a stranger,
sounds like a nightmare.
Find you random man or random woman, which would you be more comfortable with? I think I'd rather have lunch with a woman. Like, and I don't know why. It's just the way I'm.
No, I get it. Yeah, I think my answer would be the same as well. Yeah, I don't know, man. What's interesting? I didn't get into sports until I was 26 or 27. Like, I watched basketball a little bit when I was a little kid with my old stepdad, but that was about it. And then, then it was pro wrestling, right? It's not a real sport.
Yeah.
And it's fantastical. It's superheroes, basically live action superheroes. And so I really enjoyed that, but I didn't get into sports again until 26, 27.
Did you catch the Joe Rogan with Rick Rubin?
I have not.
First of all, I love Rick Rubin. To me, he's like my creative guru. Like, I just love to listen to him talk about process and how to decide whether something's good or bad, or how long to work or something. And I find him like, I just want a book of Rick Rubin's creative insights. But anyway, I think I first heard this when I think I heard an interview with him and Lex Friedman where he brought it up. And he brought it up again in the Joe Rogan thing. His favorite art to consume after music is pro wrestling. Like he's bananas for it. And it was something that I always sort of appreciated, but never went down the rabbit hole with.
Right. Right.
But to hear him talk about what makes wrestling great is just sort of fascinating, and it kind of, it's one of those things where this can happen anyway. Like, I think of this when I'm listening to Making Comics and you guys are talking basketball. When you hear someone who's passionate about something talk about a thing they love, it kind of sells you on it. Like, it's kind of like, yeah, like, I want this. I want to participate in this. I want to know something about this, and that's the reaction I have when Rick Rubin is talking about pro wrestling, where it's like, I think I want to watch some pro wrestling now. I want to, he's selling me on it,
I'm so far removed from it that I wouldn't even know what to refer you to. Like, I know a lot of my buddies are on AEW, and I just don't watch wrestling anymore. It's when I was wrestling and I was getting out of it, like when I knew I was going to retire and everything, I wasn't watching it anymore. And honestly, a lot of that too came from basically not wanting to steal from each other. And that was something that was going on a lot and still goes on till this day. Everyone just steals from each other. And then so a lot of the modern product, it all looks the same because they're all taking from the same wells. So while I was wrestling, I was just like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not watching modern stuff. I'd just watch old stuff, or I would watch, martial arts movies or something like that, just anything else to get inspiration from. And I wouldn't even know what to refer you to if you did want to get into it.
I don't know. And another thing that was interesting to me, and I hadn't really, I don't have the historical perspective to think this way, because obviously he's significantly older than us, but he was talking about, I guess he briefly tried to start his own wrestling organization.
Oh, okay.
He was asked why, what made you want to get into that? And he said it was the same thing that got him into record producing. He didn't feel like they were making the stuff he wanted. And for him, he was way into pro wrestling at the beginning. And then at about the time I was coming of age with Hulk Hogan and everything. Yeah. He's like, it was great. It was fun, but it was clearly aimed more at kids. like
Oh, I
or
see.
younger people. And he
Wow,
was like,
so
and I
he's
liked,
obsessed with the old school stuff.
he liked, yeah, like the kind of punk rock element of like just the crazy, weird, gritty, like in a little like, you know, where it was more of like an adult art form.
Okay.
And he was like, they're not doing this anymore. So I want to start a wrestling where it does that, you know, that's
Interesting.
so yeah. And I was like, that's interesting too, where it's like, you know, it's those little insights that I think to me gets me curious about something where it's like, oh, that's, I never really thought about that way.
Like the best stuff, I would say, just, I mean, not watching product, is the stuff from Japan. Like if you want to see probably what he's talking about, like the grit, the emotion, all that stuff, that's going to be in Japan. That's stuff that you'd watch over there. They just like, they kept the realism over there. It never stopped. I mean, there's feds obviously that, you know, have stuff that's a little more cartoony and goofy, and like that's what those are aimed at. That, you know, that's the audience that those are aimed at. But then there's the hard, it's called strong style, like Japanese wrestling. It's called strong style. It's basically where you guys agree to beat the shit out of each other. And
okay. So
yeah,
okay.
And that's more like the stuff that sounds like Ruben was into, was that style.
A little grittier. So
yeah.
I'm curious, and this might be, I'm curious. I have a prediction, but we'll see. But I think about this, like I've talked in the past on these streams about how it's tough for me to watch like crime shows because I know enough about that to see all the things they're cheating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke? And what was your impression of The Wrestler?
Okay. I actually have not seen it.
Oh.
And this is one of those things where if I hear enough people tell me how great it is, I just don't watch it. And that was coming from wrestlers. So like wrestlers were telling me like it really hits close to home. In the sense that it's very realistic and it's also kind of sad.
Yeah,
and it's
it
just
was
like
depressing.
Yeah. So I'm just like, well, I don't know that that's something I want to watch. Then it's just like, hey, we're
sad. Yeah,
we're living this life. I don't want to see the depressing end of it. But like when I was wrestling, I saw it firsthand. You know, I didn't see the movie The Wrestler,
right?
But I had seen,
I
had seen the thing that made me depressed watching someone else go through it. And it was, did you ever watch WWE or WWF back in the day when Hulk Hogan was around?
Bit, very casually.
Do you remember the Honky Tonk Man?
Kind of.
He's basically dressed like Fat Elvis. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was his gimmick. And I watched him when I was a child. I was watching him when I was like 7, 8 years old on WWF. And then when I was wrestling, I think in my mid-20s, because I started when I was 20. In my mid-20s, early to mid-20s, I saw him. I was on a show with him. We weren't in the same match, but he was on the same show that I was. And it was just this rinky-dink small show. I think 200 people in the audience at most. And I'm like, you're the Honky Tonk Man. Like, from my childhood, why are you still, like, I'm not obviously saying this.
Right, you're not saying this, but like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, it's like, dude, you're the Honky Tonk Man. You shouldn't be wrestling the same show that I'm wrestling at, especially this point of my career and on this specific show. And so I was like, I don't know that I want to do this for a living, like forever. Like, I think this is something I want to keep trying to do. But I think at that point, I took it serious when I had told my family, I was like, I'm stopping at 30. It's like, look, I know you guys don't want me to do this, but I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to stop at 30 if it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And honestly, when I said that, I didn't really believe that. I thought I was just going to keep doing it. But I wanted to give them a date so they can go like, okay, he's going to stop.
Right.
Like, if this isn't working.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, in my mid-20s, that happened. And I was like, I think I'm going to hold true to what I said. If I'm not making a living at this, and like, I'm just good with money in general. So it's like, if I make it, I'm going to be fine, you know, but if I don't, then I'm stopping. And so seeing him at a show really kind of opened my eyes to what my life could be and look like if I kept doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the difference with comics is like, you know, we can do this till we're old and gray as long as our hand holds up.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and especially if, I mean, it'd be cool to make a living off it, but that's not, I don't feel that burden, you know, like if 10 years from now I still have a day job and I'm still doing comics, that's fine. You know, like that's, you know, I'm not, at least I don't have that ambition or expectation. But
right. Yeah, same. It's just like, hey, look, if it happens, it happens. And obviously that's what I want. But if it doesn't happen, then I'm okay, because I'm just like, naturally I'm a storyteller and I need to tell stories. So I'll just keep doing it until all of my stories are done.
Yes. Yeah, I'm at least committed to seeing D versus M through.
You said you have six issues, right?
Yes.
Okay. Have you broken down and started selling the book digitally, Gary?
No, not yet. No, I probably will at some point, but no, not yet.
Yeah, I think I was listening. Maybe it was a couple of weeks ago. You were talking about, or honestly, I watch your old episodes too, the ones I hadn't seen yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this was an older episode. You were talking about doing a Kickstarter and like how we had talked to you about it, and I really do think that's the way to go, because number one, you'll get everyone that buys your books now. You'll get all of those people, unless they're the type that like to see you at shows and get it from you in person or whatever.
Yeah.
But more than likely, you'll get all those people that buy it now, and then you'll get new people that just happen across it. So your audience will widen.
Yeah, I definitely want to do a Kickstarter, and that is the obvious point to offer digital. Despite my mixed feelings about it, yes, that would probably be the point where I'd be like, all right, I will.
Yeah, it's just free money, dude. Like that's how I look at digital. It's like, yeah, obviously I'm a physical copy reader, but there's a lot of people that are digital only. And you one issue, at like, okay, what? So are you gonna do a Kickstarter for this one that you're currently drawing?
No, this one, no. I think I'm gonna do the Kickstarter for the trade that will combine the first three.
I think you should do it for this one, and let me tell you why. Let me tell you why.
Why?
Because all those brand new people that have not read this book yet, they're going to buy all three of your copies right then and there. So, and you're expanding your audience with every single book that you put out. And not only that, like if you have digital, you can charge, like what's your cover price? $10?
I've gone to 15 because I do free shipping. So
okay.
Yeah, it's 15.
Okay. Yeah. So like at shows though, you do 10?
Yeah, 10 or 12 depends what the situation is, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so
when we go, I'll probably do 10 because we'll be sharing table costs. But when I'm doing it all by myself, then I usually do 12.
Oh, okay. You can always do I find this very helpful at shows is to cut deals. So you can tell them it's 12, and then you're like, you know what, if you pick up 2, I'll just do 10 a piece or something like that, because then it trims down the cost.
Well, and I do like that wiggle room. People like to feel like they're getting something. So sometimes, whether I do 12 or 15 or whatever, if you're at a show and they're looking at it and they're kind of like, you can tell like they're on the fence.
Yeah.
That's times like, you know what? I would take 10. And that usually is like, okay. Like they just go right over. So like it's nice. Where if you set it at 10, now you have no wiggle room.
Exactly. Like So, but yeah, if you do a Kickstarter for this issue that you're doing, number one, you're going to get paid to basically print the issues. The issues will be printed for free, no cost to you. That's nice. The ultimate beauty of doing Kickstarters, because like I have at least 50 to 75 dedicated fans of my books that back the Kickstarters. So that is basically my whole first printing is all of their backing. And so I have, like I'll do print runs of 100 basically. And, like in minus whatever, like the backers are. So if I have like 55 backers or something, right, I'll do 155.
155, yeah.
Right. So then all of their backing will cover that cost for those other issues. So you're not coming out of pocket for anything. And again, your audience will expand. You'll get more people that are casually, like there's tons of people that are on Kickstarter just searching for new things to pick up.
Yeah.
And then also the digital aspect. So if you can charge, like, so let's say you have followers now that want to back your Kickstarter. So all they need is this current one, but they want to start going digital. Okay, they'll give you, pick, like I do $5 for digital. Yeah. People will give you $5 for a copy of a file. You just give them a link and you get $5. So like it's such a great deal.
Yeah.
And then you can even do like 5 a piece for all of your books digitally, or you can cut them a deal. Okay, if you get all 3, it's $12. and then it's just free $12. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty amazing. So that's actually why I love digital backers, because it's just like, oh, here's the thing that's already done.
It's kind of free money.
It is.
Yeah,
100%.
like I definitely see the financial appeal of digital as a seller. Like I can see like, well, boy, that's crazy, because once it's done, it costs you nothing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just hey, free money. Like I'm not really a digital reader. Like I do read the Kickstarter books like that I back. If I do want to read those, I have them in a file. Like as soon as the file comes in, I throw them, or as soon as their file comes in, I throw it into this folder on my Google Drive. And I'm like, okay, hey, I feel like reading something, and I'll go through there and see what's interesting, and I'll read it on my iPad or whatever. But obviously, I still, as a digital or single issue reader myself and collector, every week I'm going to the shop and picking up physical copies. So those ones, I read traditionally.
Yeah. I think my guy is getting pretty close here.
Yeah, man, it's looking really good. Like, honestly, when you first started the stream, I was like, that looks close to done. Like, I didn't think that you need to do that much to it. But the more that you've been working on it, the more refined it looks. Looks great.
Yeah, it's, I mean, when I started the stream, as I think I said on the outset, like, I probably could have stopped there for what I need it for. Just like lighting reference, position reference. Like I had the basic shapes. That's enough. But it's like, like I said, I'm just kind of enjoying this, and it's kind of fun to see like how far I can take it. But
yeah, kind of bums me out that the marbles aren't the correct size.
I know. It's but I'm maybe it's just because I've been looking at it so long. I'm kind of getting used to it enough where it's like, I don't know, maybe he'll have smaller eyes in the comic. I don't know.
Yeah, like this specific
maybe this is what this guy looks like.
Yeah. But the other aliens make fun of him because he has tiny eyes.
Unusual.
And then he's like, you guys are racist.
I think, yeah. I tend to, especially in 97, people might have seen this. I make them all look very diverse. Like they all look, I try not to make it just look like, oh, they all look the same. And some I try to make, because there's a lot of diversity in how they look in the conspiracy literature.
Mm-hmm.
So part of it is like, I want to reference all those. So like I remember there's a 2-page thread of a bunch of them in the Mars bot in 97. I have one that to me looks very much like the Whitley Strieber communion alien. I have one that looks more, like I try to like make them all look, so
vary it.
Yeah, so they're all definitely the same species, but they look very different. I wanted you to be able to recognize individuals.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
So maybe this guy he does look a little different.
Yeah, I do that in Wanderers as well. It's like, okay, this is this race of, I don't know, like prehistoric amphibians or whatever. So it's like, I'll try to change them up a little bit. I'll give some pot bellies. I'll make some taller, shorter, fatter.
Yeah.
So yeah, just varying them up. Man, I'm making some nice progress on this last image too.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I will. I had a goal of wanting to bang this out today, just so I'm, I don't know, free to move about and go work on my other book again.
Yeah.
And not be worried about not making the deadline of the daily prompt. And so I'm really happy that this is coming to a close.
I admire your hustle in doing like a Drawtober, because I usually only do them if I'm in like writing mode, if I'm writing a script or something.
Okay.
But once I'm like actually drawing, like I can't focus on anything else. Like
I hear you. Yeah, Keith was asking me, because I was in the middle of drawing Second Shift 13 when this started, and he's like, "Why do you even do it? Like, why?" It sounds like it's kind of a hindrance this time around.
I think that was a couple podcasts ago, right? I think I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah, him asking you that.
Yeah, and it's the simple fact that it commits me to a schedule. Like we're on our own schedules, obviously, and our own deadlines that we set. But this is one of those that it's like everyone knows it. You know,
Yeah.
it's like everyone knows that you have to draw something new every day. So what's the new thing you drew this day? And so it commits me to this deadline. And you know, if I don't hit it, then you know, I'm like everyone thinks I'm a fool. So like,
Yeah.
and
No,
so
I'm a big fan of. I feel like I need it less and less as I go on, and my habits are getting a little calcified. But I am a big fan of public declarations to make yourself accountable.
Yes.
Like I do think there's a lot of power in that, especially if you're someone who has having trouble starting or trouble sticking with something. I think there's a lot to be said, whether it's online or on your social media or just among your friends and family in life, to say like, I'm going to do this thing. I'm setting this rate. I expect to be done on this date. Like, just put it out there, because now it doesn't mean you won't, you know, it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to follow through, but it adds that much more pressure, you know, just
absolutely.
enough where it's like, I don't want to have that conversation, because next time I see them, they're going to say, hey, how's the thing coming? And I don't want to say, I haven't started yet.
Or I gave up. Yeah. Nope. Totally. That's, you know, and that's when I started doing the 25 push-ups a day. I was initially recording them.
Yeah.
And it was for accountability, you know, and my girlfriend even asked me, she's like, why do you do that? Like, why do you have to post? Like, she's not a social media person at all.
Yeah.
And so she like struggles to understand why people use social media
at all.
Right. And she's like, look, I understand for your comics, for your job, you know, like you have to be a public persona and all that. She goes, but why do you have to do it for that? And I'm like, accountability, you know, it's just like, if I don't do it, I have a few friends that are going to mention like, hey, how come you stop doing that?
Yeah. What happened with the push-ups?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's just one of those things where it's like, I like being held accountable to the things that I say I'm going to do. And, you know, then I show people, yeah, you can do this, you know, as long as you say you're going to do it and stick to it, like you can hit these goals. They're not hard things to do.
Yeah. And whatever, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, Nike, just do it. But how do you go about that? There's lots of tools in the toolbox. And one is, like create social pressure.
Yeah.
You know, however that is, whether by telling everyone you're going to do this thing, or by, I think what we do a lot is like, you know, buddy up with a lot of other creatives and you start telling them like the thing you're working on. That's a whole different level of it. It's like, I'm not inclined to drop D versus M, but if I ever woke up one day and it's like, I don't know if I want to do this. Why am I doing this to myself? Like, I know I would have to have 8 conversations with other creatives who are doing it, you know, to be like, yeah, I just decided no more. And that might be enough to make you like, you know what, I just maybe need a break. Like, I'm fine. You know, like I'll take a day off and I'll feel better tomorrow and I'll be back at it. Like, it's just enough to like, I don't want to have that conversation.
Yep. I agree. I don't know, man. I don't know that I've ever stopped or thought about stopping, you know, drawing. Like, I think maybe for a brief moment, it's just like, is it worth it? Like, what am I doing? But then just even the thought of that, like I instantly was just like, of course I'm going to keep doing this. Like, what the fuck else am I going to do with my time? You know, am I just going to be a normie? I'm just going to, you know, like just be
we've
someone.
Talked about that a couple times now, this idea of like, it's kind of hard for us. And this is why I think we should be doing it. It's hard for us to relate to people who don't have a thing. Yeah. You know,
I don't want to be a person without a thing.
Well, I mean, in some ways, I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess I sort of envy it, but I'm definitely not that person. You know, like I know I would be, even if I did, like, I don't know, if I was in an accident and I couldn't draw, I would figure out what I could do. You know, like it would never be a thing where it's like, well, I guess I'm done with doing the creative stuff. You know, there'd be something. I would be talk to text writing project or something. I'd be doing something, like I just can't. And even when I'm not actively drawing or writing a comic, I'm building a model, or I'm, there's some creative thing going on.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. I think I've done it my whole life, and to stop, it just seems weird. You know, I was drawing comics ever since I was a little kid, or like trying to. It's one of those things where you start it and then you're just a kid, and then you lose focus and want to go do something else. Or like, I had so many ideas for stories that I would start one, and then I would think of this other cool idea, and then I would just never finish the other one. So it's just like, if I go through all of my old comic boxes, it's just a bunch of comic book ideas that were never completed.
Yeah.
Because it's hard work, man. Like, a lot of people don't know that. Like, if you've never drawn your own comic, it's just freaking hard work.
It's very tough.
It's a grind.
And that's why I'm eager. I hope I'm assuming we'll talk about it when Keith comes on. But like in the 100th episode of Making Comics.
Bash, stop. Sorry.
What's
my
that?
Dog? Sorry, my dog's whining.
Oh, I didn't hear.
Okay.
I brought up the fact that, and I've told this story many times on my channel and on Artcasters and stuff. Like, I wanted to finally, like, I want to follow through on an ambitious creative project for the first time. I don't want to quit. I don't want to find some excuse to stop. I want to just pick a thing and finish it. And I looked at my options, and I had some screenplays I was screwing around with, and I had a fantasy novel I was screwing around with, and I had the comic ideas, D versus M. And I thought, and like the other comic people, they laugh when I say this. I was like, oh, well, that'll be the easiest one to follow through with, like the comic thing. When it's nowhere near easy. Like, it's not even close. It's not only all the challenges of writing a novel, but now you're illustrating it. You know, like every single step. It's not even an illustrated novel where every 2 pages there's a plate. Like, every little beat you have to draw. Like, and so I said on the podcast, like a novel would have been way easier. And I was very sensitive to that because I know Keith is deep in the novel writing right now. And I'm sure he's like,
I think he caught a little feeling. I think he caught a little feelings on that.
That's why I was careful. It's like, look, I'm not saying writing a novel is easy. But I think and I'm not even going to say it's easier than a comic, but what I will say, far less time consuming. Like,
yes, I would imagine so.
6 issues of D versus M. And these are fat things. These are 40 to 60 page on average comics. So let's say 50. That's going to be 300 pages of comic when that's done, more or less. And that's probably going to be 10 years of my life.
Yeah.
It would not take me that long to do a 300-page novel. Like, nowhere near. Like, unless I'm just fumbling and stumbling, and now I got to change this again, and no, I don't like this idea. Like, that's the big difference.
Yeah. I don't know how many pages Keith his novel is, but he's 6 years in.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know that it's 300. It might be more substantial. I'm not really sure.
300 is a pretty skinny novel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I would think. I mean,
yeah, it sounds like on a smaller end. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume an average novel's 400, 450. I don't know. Oh, did I lose Scott? I lost Scott. I'm assuming he's going to come back. Is everyone else still here? We have some viewers. There he is. Okay, so it must have been Scott.
Happened, and mine just crapped out.
Yours just blipped. Okay.
Yeah, I was like, hey, I was mid-sentence. Yeah, so I don't know really how long his is, but yeah, it must be more substantial for how long it's taking.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like you were saying, you're not just doing the writing duty, you're not just doing the drawing duty, you're doing both. So
all of it.
I know how long it takes. Like, what's the average length per page, would you say, on average? Not. I know every page is different.
In terms
of length to draw. So for me, second shift, which it's a little more involved, and I feel like your work's more involved. Wanderers is very cartoony, so I can actually bang it out pretty quickly. And so I would say for Wanderers, average per page is maybe 5 hours. It's 4 panels on one page. It takes me about an hour, hour 10, hour 15 per panel.
Okay.
So, but then second shift, it can be anywhere from 6. Like I think the last page I did only had 3 panels on it. That took me 4 hours. But then some of the pages, they take 16 to 20 hours, but I think my average time is about 10.
Yeah. Let me guess. I would say the average page. So most of the work happens on the weekend, obviously.
Okay.
Because it's a day job. I would probably I probably put in 6 to 8 hours a day on the weekends. So okay, so 12 to 16. Well, I'm going to assume low for 2 reasons. First of all, it's rare like I'm going to be butt in chair that entire time. Like, you know how it is. You work for an hour or two, you get up, stretch your legs, start some laundry, you get a snack, you come back, you work a few more hours. There's a little bit of that all day.
Yep, absolutely.
So we'll say 6 hours a day on the weekend, so 12 hours, and then I probably spend 1 to 2 hours
during the week.
Yeah. So and it's in the evenings. Like I'll do my job, I'll come home, have dinner or something, decompress a little bit, and then like make a little progress. So so what is 12? Let's say 13, 14, 15. I bet at safe averages I'm doing about 20 hours a page.
Okay.
And
yeah, it's when I switched to digital for the interiors, it cut my time in half. Like I was doing 20 hours per page every single time, 20 hours per page. And then when I switched to digital, it cut it down to like half. It was like 10 hours. And I was like, this is crazy. So like I was telling everyone that would listen, I'm like, look, you got to switch to digital,
Yeah.
And you have those diehards that are like, nope, no way, never will. And then one of them did. The other one still hasn't, but like he's really fast. So I'm just like, whatever, you're good. It's just like, but imagine how much faster you could be with digital. And yeah, man. So just that time save that you get from working digitally. Like if you have a layout and one of your characters is slightly off, you're like, well, they need to be over to the left, more over to the right. Instead of having to redraw, like the idea that you would just have to redraw that erase it and redraw it is, I can't even imagine doing that today. It just sounds so frustrating.
Yeah, I mean the edits. I think to me, if there's one argument for working digital, it's making changes. Now, I know some of my traditional working friends and colleagues, their argument would be, I'm assuming, or at least one of their arguments would be, part of it is
having the physical art for sale.
Well, that too, that's another big one. But no, like I think part of it is like being able to just train yourself to get used to like it's going to be what it's going to be, and not sit and finesse and not get lost in this perfection quest.
Yeah, so the art, and like I totally get that. I understand it, and like like my example specifically, what you would have to learn is lay everything out first before you start getting into the details. And like the problem is though, sometimes you'll just throw a gesture down and it's just the right image. You're just like, that's exactly what I've been looking for. And then you erase it and you try to recapture it and you just never can, you know?
Yeah, it's true. And it's interesting. I mean, and I don't think this is a controversial take. Digital just allows you to skip so many steps.
100%.
Like I don't even have, I wouldn't even have anything that most people would recognize as a pencil stage, because I don't think there's much value in it. Like, to me, the way I work, I
100%
basically
agree.
go from thumbs to inks, because it's
Okay.
like, what would a pencil stage even be? Like, and especially if I do the pencil and I like how it looks, it's like, now I'm waving a wand and saying, you are now ink.
Let me
It's the
see if I
same
can.
thing digitally. So like, what
Yeah, let
difference?
me see if I can. I don't know if this is going to translate because looking at digital. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out. Okay, so look how rough that is.
Yes.
That's my thumb.
That's basically what would be the equivalent of how my pencils look.
Oh wow, really? That's
Yes.
wild.
And then I
Yeah,
just go
this
from
is
there.
so like. This is just my thumbnail blown up. It's just very loose. You have the very basic shapes of where everyone's going to be.
Yeah.
And then let me switch to my pencils.
I'll show you.
And here's my pencils. Everything's just a little bit tighter, but not really. It's just like, okay, all of the form is there. You can see all the muscle structure, bone structure, and everything like that. And then this is where I am with, oh shit, what happened?
I'll show you.
And then this is where I am with pencil or inks. So like, but this is where my pencils would be if I was doing this traditionally. Yeah. This is where my pencils would be. So it's way cleaner and tighter. And I ink instead of penciling. I use like an ink pen. Instead of selecting a pencil, I select an ink pen because it's just like, okay, well, it's just done then,
Honestly, if I was going to do, and it's just something I considered when I was starting D versus M, I love pencils. If I can only do one medium for the rest of my life, I like working with graphite. So what I was considering was like, maybe I could just do really good, tight finished pencils and then scan it into Photoshop and just make it black,
Were you going to show me?
I was going to show you. This is as refined as here's a thumbnail for like an alien. Yeah. Like that's as good as I go like really rough.
I would 100% ink that. Yeah, totally.
But see, and that like, to me, that's like, this is basically to me like a final thumb.
All the information is there.
Starting point for my pencil.
Yeah.
Which is like, and then I'm going to just start doing ink on top of that because I'm working digitally. I can do my lines, and when the line looks good, it's like, that's ink. That's final.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, this is
that's a really tight. I would consider that a tighter pencil. Volume
one of your books.
Oh, that's awesome. Where did you pick them up at? Did you get it off a Kickstarter or the website or?
We'll see when she.
And was it a second shift or was it Wanderers? Or Wanderers would be single issue, not a volume. Second shift volume 1 is available on the website.
On your site. So.
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. Did you just do that right now?
I enjoy Scott's comics a lot. So anybody watching, either now or later, second shift.
Hell yeah. And something, Didi, that I like to tell people is, I don't know if you caught the episode of Gary's stream. I think maybe a month ago at this point, I was on there. So the second shift, volume 1, I was wrestling for 10 years. And so the first issue is me literally drawing for not the first time, but consistently for in 10 years. So the first issue is me no longer wrestling and starting to draw comic books. So you'll see as you go through the volume, issue 1's a little rough, and then it just keeps getting more and more consistent, and then to my current style. Like a lot of it's there in the first issue as well, but especially those beginning pages, it's just like, I can't wait to go back and redo those. So, but I think everything from halfway through issue 2, or not even halfway through issue 2, like moving forward, like I'm proud of all of that stuff. I'm proud of all of it. But I feel confident enough in, the second issue moving forward. I was like, okay, cool. Like everything there is good. And, I like the amount of growth that you can see in, from issue 2 to 5. Like I like all of that growth. Like for me, issue 1, there's a lot of stuff there. It's just like, you didn't know enough and you just started going for it. And like that comes with some cool results. I think a lot of the panel layouts that I tried in issue 1, there are things that I haven't tried today, like going back and going like, okay, going back and looking at those, it's like, man, that was really adventurous. Like that was really, you were taking a leap at doing, like I have a couple of panels. One is the rear view mirror. They're inside of their beater van, and the rear view mirror is the panel. The shape of the rear view mirror is the panel. And then the next panel is the shape of the front glass. So it's just like, oh, it's it's very creative, and I'm just trying stuff out, and I'm happy with those results. Like looking back at it, it's just like, man, you were really taking risks on these things.
That's fun. Like I find looking back on 75 and looking at what I'm doing now in 79, I'm being way more adventurous now. There were little bits of 75 where I would break the part of it is the telling, like D versus M has a very kind of dry, serious, like kind of straight tone. I think if there was a director who would do well with 75, it'd be like David Fincher, someone who just kind of like clean, understated, like just show it, And so I think the way I do my panels, the way I do my pages, everything, it's very much like this, very like not a lot of frills, just like very like reserved. But I think what makes that fun is every once in a while when you decide to cut loose, now you have room. Like you have a lot of room. And so like in 75, when the man in black gets hit with a hallucination gas, and like there's this sequence that gets very nightmarish and weird, like I think that's where it pays off that you were being so straight and so like kind of conservative. Like it's like, okay, now when it goes weird and the panels are kind of like starting to bleed away and like strange things are happening, like it really kind of makes more of an impact and that in 79 there's a lot more of that play. And I'm also trying to do more of trying to be a little more adventurous with something I know Artcasters have talked about, Josh has talked about, and you guys talked about, I think, recently on Making Comics. And I forgot how you described it, but basically where you take a scene and you break it up into panels and you're seeing like the same scene. Like it's almost, imagine you do like a full page drawing, but then you carve it up into panels to show like someone moving through the scene.
Yes.
That's something I'm playing with in a couple points in 79. In 79, I'm playing with a little bit of like how to represent motion, how to represent time, how to represent lighting, like little things like that, where it's like I'm trying to be a little more adventurous. It's still very much going to feel like a D versus M, but I'm trying to stretch a little bit. Now, as I'm getting more confident, I'm more comfortable stretching a little bit. So.
Yeah, issue 1 was like me not knowing any better. You know what I mean? It's just like what's that term? It's like a sports analogy or something that comes up a lot is you're so young, you don't know you're supposed to be afraid,
Yeah.
And that's definitely Second Shift 1. There's just like a lot of adventure and testing stuff out because, by issue 2, I was learning more by like visiting other creators' pages or like talking to them on social media and like learning the rules, the rules of comics. And the more you know, the more you kind of stay inside the box. And that's what I was doing. Like you can see it in issues 2, maybe even a little bit of 3. Yeah. I'm definitely just going straight normal panels, not doing anything crazy. And it's because I was learning the rules. And it's like, oh, okay, you have to learn the rules before you can break them. And, looking back at issue 1, it's just like, no, I think you would have been okay continuing to break those rules because they were fun and it was different. And learn the rules. But if you're, I don't know, kind of advanced in other areas where maybe other creators who've been doing this a while aren't, then keep doing it. Like the thing about making comics is it's fun and it's adventure. And it's like, there's these quote unquote rules, but at the same time, it's like, hey, this is art. Art is supposed to be free, and
Yeah.
you know, you're allowed to express yourself the way that you want to. So, I mean, yeah, like the most rules I think you would want to really follow as, you know, as far as creating comics is, how do you read them? You know, you usually start at this top corner, and
Yeah.
like, and if you can do it in a way where you can kind of subvert that and try something different, then more power to you. But you're always going to basically kind of have to start in that top left corner, and then from there, depending how you design your page, you can make the reader follow how you want them to. You know, it's just the matter of designing it correctly.
Josh Kemble especially talks a lot about is how he envisions a bright utopia future where every genre of fiction is represented in comics. You know, it's not just superheroes and horror and like the stuff you normally see now. Like there's just
what genre wouldn't be, you know, shown in comics today?
Well, I think there is, but like sort of equally represented.
Oh,
so
okay.
like, and something I would like, the example I think of, the way I interpret what he's saying is, you know, when we go into a comic book shop now, they're usually arranged, at least in my experience, maybe by publisher, and then like alphabetically, like, but you don't go into a comic book shop and see like, where's your horror section?
Yes,
like,
yes.
Where's your romance section? Where's your autobiographical section? You know, like it's not
or a bookstore or something.
It's very much like pretty much by publisher, and then maybe within publisher it'll be like, here is your Iron Man section. you know, and it's like, and imagine if you went into a bookstore and it was like, here's our, you know, Random House section. It's like, I don't even know what to make of that. Like it doesn't, like, I don't even know what to look for. So, and I think that to me, like the way to get there is, well, see, this is, and I think you guys at Making Comics, like, I feel like you talk about this a lot and you'd be on the same page. Some of it is, yeah, there are rules, and yeah, there are like, this is the best way to approach the medium, but none of these are the 10 Commandments. Like you can't get hung up on, well, that's not how you set up a page, or that's not how you tell a story. And that's why sometimes I get a little triggered, even though I don't disagree when I hear people talk about like, oh, talking heads. It's like, yeah, talking heads can be bad, but that's not a rule. Like we should be careful not to say like, don't ever do talking heads, or don't ever, or when you hear like, and these are usually very inexperienced people saying this, but saying things like,
yes,
you can't go more than a couple pages in without a big action scene. Shut up. Like what that is, like maybe that's,
it's all dependent on what kind of book you're doing, you know? It's just like a lot of what is it, 97 is, you know, two women in a room,
and like,
and it's intriguing. It's just like, yeah, you're there, but you're enthralled in the conversation and what's going on. If your dialogue is good, you can make almost anything work.
Yes. And so that's why I think the only rule is execution is king. That's, I think, the rule. Any story is tellable if you can do it well enough. Now, I'm not saying I'm doing it well enough, but I'm at least saying I'm at least open to the idea of, I think this can be done. You know, like I'm going to take a swing at it. And like, for example, there's a movie out now, I wish I could remember the name of it, but it's Brendan Gleeson and I think Colin Farrell. Okay. And from what I can understand from the trailers and hearing interviews about it, it's a movie about two guys who have been friends their whole life and they don't want to be friends anymore. And like, can you imagine if someone pitched that comic book, like how many people would tell you like, that's not a comic. And that's what I think, that's where we need to push.
I see.
Like, why can't it be a comic? I want to read the comic about two adult men who aren't going to be friends anymore. That's where we can get to that golden age that Josh talks about. If you go into a comic book shop and it's divided up by genre rather than publisher, you know, like that's a good, you know, way to get there. But
yeah, absolutely. And honestly, there would be so many more sales, I believe. I think that's something that would benefit the comic stores heavily, is just like there are people that just love horror and that's all they're looking through. And then they have to sift through, like, I mean, my comic shop, as most comic shops, they're sorted by alphabet. So, you know, you get A through Z for the new books and everything like that. And then, you know, it might be publisher if you go into their back issues, or just runs. It might even still be alphabetically. And then, you know, it's just for the runs. But if you did walk into a comic store and it was set up in a way where you go like, okay, where's all your horror books? And then it was like, okay, they didn't miss one of them, because they were able to go, okay, these are all ones that I might be interested in. Let me thumb through real quick and see if it's something I would want to pick up.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and well, and some are, but like, for example, I'm really excited about the Knives Out sequel. Was it Glass Onion or something? Like,
oh, okay.
Because I love like that kind of old school Agatha Christie, like whodunit type, you know, 10 people in a room, someone's dead, who was the murderer? Like, I love that stuff. It's fun. Mm-hmm. And like so that movie is one of those kinds of things. I'm sure there are mystery comics like whodunits, but like I'm assuming it's less than 1%. And that would be another thing. It's like, I would like to see more of that, like more of everything. And I'm not I want to be very clear to anybody, not anti-superhero comic. Like I love that stuff. But I would love, just like with movies, I'm not anti-superhero movies, but I like to see lots of movies, like lots of kinds of movies, you know? Like, and I would like comics to sort of be the same way. So I think some of what I'm doing with D versus M is my modest little tilting at that windmill where it's like, yes, it's sci-fi. Yes, you get some ray guns. Yes, you get some like people getting vaporized. Yeah, you get some dinosaurs. But in that, I'm going to wrap it in some stuff that I like, which is like, I want to see fleshed out characters. I want to see like some interesting dialogue. I want to see, you know, like there's like, you know, I want to try and like build out. It's I guess a little bit of the Rick Rubin thing where it's like, I started a wrestling thing because they weren't making the wrestling I wanted. Right. It's a little bit like, I'm going to do a D versus them. That's kind of like, this is sort of the comic I would be sort of interested in, I think. You know,
absolutely. That's definitely something me and Keith have talked about. It's like, you know, don't create comics based off of the current trend, because you're going to miss it. You know, it's, you know, like one of the trends that was going on, and it's still going on, but it's definitely on the tail end of it, is like having this crazy long title for your name, for your book name. So, and that all started with, we only find them when they're dead. And then it was just such a hit that everyone started doing it. Now, you know how now you have all of these books with super long titles. Yeah. And like every time I see it, I'm like, it's a little cringy now. You know, it's like someone doing the dab. It's just like, please stop. Like it's not cool anymore. It's not in vogue. Like, let's let it go, you know?
Yes.
Gosh. Oh, hey man, I got to take off. My dog's crying. I think he's got to go to the bathroom.
No, so. I think I'm kind of, I could screw around with this for the rest of the day, but I do need to get back to drawing. So let's see here. We'll put him. He looks really. I like the neck curvature a little bit. I like.
Totally.
You know, that'll work.
Dude, that looks really good. That looks really, really good. Yeah. So if you guys haven't checked out Alex Ross's channel, just type in Alex Ross. His channel will come up.
I'm gonna check that out. Maybe I'll.
Yeah. So he does those sculptures as well for the Fantastic Four. They look awesome. And for you guys that are in here and don't know who I am, it's at Scott Lost, SCOTTLOST on Twitter and Instagram, and Facebook.com/Scott Lost. I do 2 books. Second shift, it's minimum wage superheroes. People normal 9 to 5s during the day and superheroes at night. And then Wanderers of Melisande is anthropomorphic dinosaurs versus humans. 1,000 years in the future, we start colonizing other planets and come across planet Melisande, where the meteor never hit and dinosaurs of that world survived and evolved. So it's 2 dominant species trying to coexist on one planet. Gary, does that ever work?
Never works.
It never works. So so if you guys think those are interesting, check them out at accidentalaliens.com. And easiest way to find that, like if you don't want to remember that, go to @ScottLost on Twitter and Instagram, and the link to that website is right there, and you can click it and it'll take you right to the shop.
Cool. Well, I appreciated you hanging out.
Yeah, man. No, it was fun. I really like doing this. Actually, it's like, you know, hanging out at a cafe and drawing with your friends. So I got some great work done. Man, I wish you lived closer, because me and Keith and Ed did that last weekend or the weekend before. We hung out. I did a day turnaround. I drove up to LA. Keith and Ed, they met me at a Starbucks, like in Irvine, which is halfway for both of us. And so we just sat there, we talked, we worked, and then went to a comic store and went to a brewery and had some beers afterwards, and talked about all that stuff. So it was cool.
Well, we'll be able to do some of that when you're in town this coming summer. So
yeah, man. And the hopes is like, my girlfriend, she has one of her close friends lives in Arizona. So like if we ever take a trip out there, I'm gonna hit you up and
do it.
Yeah.
I'm I'm as you've noticed in our group chat, I'm already making a list of like, this is a brewery we need to go to. This is a restaurant we need to remember. Yeah. Like this is it's like we'll probably end up having more options than we will have time to do any of it, but that's fine. That's okay.
Yeah, it'll be fun, man. Yeah, especially since, like we'll be hanging with you at your place. So it'll definitely give us more time to do things together. So it'll be fun, man.
Totally. Cool.
All right. Hey, thanks for everybody watching. Thanks for having me on, Gary.
Yeah, absolutely. Next time.
All right. See you.
Let's see here.
I don't know how to get out
thank
of here.
You very
there
much.
It is.
Oh, he's blipping it out. There we go. Thank you very much, Dee. I enjoyed having you in the chat. Thank you very much. I'm happy with it. Like I said, when I set out, my goal. Let's see if we can. How can I really? I'm trying to get rid of the highlight. Yeah, it's just my camera's not going to do it. Let's see here. It's good enough. As I said on the outset, I am not a professional sculptor. I do not have much experience with it. My ambition was not to have a piece of art. My ambition was to have a decent amateur effort, and I think I've got that. So, and this will absolutely fulfill my needs for the drawing. So, I might. No, I'm not. I'm gonna now at this point I'm just screwing around with it because I'm enjoying myself, but I don't need it. This is good enough for my purposes, which is shape reference and light reference. So that's it. I got to get to drawing. All right. I'm going to take some pictures of it to put on the old Instagram. And then I'm going to go back to drawing page. Where am I? I am on page 37. About a half a week ahead, I would say. So hopefully it would be great if I can maintain like being a few days ahead. It would be great if when you next see me next weekend, I'm not just starting page 38, maybe I am well into page 38. That would be nice. I'd feel pretty good about that. Okay. I am going to maybe have a little bit of lunch and then get to drawing. I hope everyone has a good, productive, creative weekend. I hope everyone's doing well. Maybe I will see you on your respective channels as I'm looking for something to listen to as I draw. And otherwise, I will see you next weekend.